The wind swept across the dry plains like a lonely whisper, carrying dust through the cracked fences of Daniel Harper's ranch. The once proud spread of land in the Wyoming Territory had been dying for years. The grass had thinned, the cattle had grown weak, and the debts piled higher than the old wooden barn that leaned like a tired old man ready to fall. Daniel Harper stood on the porch of his ranch house, staring across the land his father had once called the richest soil in the valley. Now it looked like a graveyard of broken dreams. The bank had given him 30 days. 30 days to pay what he owed, or the ranch would be taken and sold. At 35, Daniel was a hard-working cowboy, but he was also a stubborn one. He had tried everything, working double shifts, selling half the herd, even fixing neighboring fences for a few extra dollars. But the drought and bad luck kept crushing every attempt. Finally, after weeks of sleepless nights, Daniel did something he never thought he would do. He ordered a mail-order bride. Not for love, not even for companionship, but for survival. The advertisement in the Frontier newspaper promised that some women were willing to travel west to marry hard-working men and build a new life together. Daniel hoped, maybe foolishly, that a wife might bring help to the ranch, or at least someone who believed the place could still live again. Still, when the stagecoach finally appeared on the dusty road that afternoon, Daniel felt nervous in a way he hadn't since he was a boy. The coach stopped near the gate, and the driver stepped down, helping a woman climb out. She was smaller than Daniel expected. She wore a simple brown dress and carried a worn leather suitcase. Her dark hair was tied neatly, and her eyes scanned the ranch carefully, as if she were measuring every fence, every patch of soil. Daniel walked forward slowly. "You must be Miss Emily Carter," he said. The woman nodded politely. "And you must be Mr. Harper." Daniel scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "You traveled a long way." "From Kansas," she replied calmly. 3 days by train and 2 by coach. Daniel hesitated before saying the next words. "I should probably tell you, this ranch ain't exactly in the best condition." Emily looked across the dry land again. The tired cattle, the broken irrigation ditch. "Yes," she said quietly. "I can see that." Daniel expected disappointment, maybe even regret. Instead, Emily smiled slightly. "But it's not dead." Daniel blinked. "What?" "The land," she said. "It's not dead. It's just been treated wrong." Daniel laughed softly. "Ma'am, I've been working this land my whole life." Emily turned toward him. "My father was an agricultural engineer." Daniel frowned. She continued calmly. "I spent 10 years helping him study soil, water systems, and drought farming. Before he died, we helped revive farms that everyone else had given up on." Daniel stared at her. "You're telling me you can fix this place?" Emily didn't answer right away. Instead, she knelt down, scooped up a handful of dirt, rubbed it between her fingers, and examined it carefully. "The soil still has life," she said. Daniel's heart started beating faster. "But the water system is wrong. The crops were planted wrong. The grazing pattern is destroying the grass." She stood up and looked directly at him. "If you trust me, I can save this ranch." For the first time in months, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The next morning, Emily woke up before sunrise and began walking the land with a notebook in her hands. Daniel followed her across fields and fences while she pointed out problems he had never noticed. "The cattle graze the same section every day," she explained. "The grass can't recover." She sketched a map. "We rotate them through sections. The land heals." Then she showed him the irrigation ditch. "The water is flowing downhill too fast," she said. "Most of it is wasted before it reaches the crops." Within days, Emily redesigned the entire water system using simple wooden gates and trenches. Soon water began reaching fields that had been dry for years. Daniel watched in amazement. But Emily wasn't finished. She introduced drought-resistant crops Daniel had never heard of. She changed the cattle feeding schedule. She even convinced Daniel to plant windbreak trees along the edges of the ranch. At first the neighbors laughed. "Harper's mail-order bride thinks she's a scientist," one cowboy joked in town. But 3 weeks later, something incredible started happening. The grass began growing thicker. The cattle gained weight. The crops sprouted strong green rows where nothing had grown before. And when the bank agent arrived to inspect the ranch, he could hardly believe his eyes. "This land looked dead last season," the man said. Daniel smiled proudly. "My wife had other plans." Friends, if you're enjoying this powerful Western story so far, Take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who loves great storytelling, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another incredible story like this one. Because this story is only getting started. As summer approached, the Harper Ranch slowly transformed. The fields turned green. The cattle grew stronger. Even the old barn that once looked ready to collapse now stood beside stacks of fresh hay. But something else was changing too. Daniel and Emily. At first, their marriage had been nothing more than an agreement, a partnership to save a dying ranch. But working side by side every day created something deeper. They laughed together fixing fences. They argued playfully about planting schedules. They shared quiet dinners on the porch watching the sunset over land that was slowly coming back to life. One evening, Daniel finally asked the question that had been on his mind for weeks. Emily, if you knew all this, why become a mail-order bride? Emily looked out across the fields. After a long silence, she said softly, because after my father died, I had nowhere left to go. Daniel didn't speak. She continued, most farms wouldn't listen to a woman. They laughed when I offered help. She looked at him. But you gave me a chance. Daniel shook his head. No, he said quietly. You gave me one. By the end of the season, the Harper Ranch was producing more than it had in 10 years. The bank canceled Daniel's debt. Neighbors who once laughed were now asking Emily for advice. And one afternoon, as Daniel stood beside the fence watching a healthy herd graze across thick green grass, he realized something surprising. He was no longer fighting to save the ranch. The ranch was thriving. Because of her. Emily walked up beside him. What are you smiling about? She asked. Daniel looked at her. You didn't just save the ranch. He paused. You saved me too. Emily smiled. And in that quiet moment beneath the golden western sky, their marriage stopped being an arrangement and became a real love story. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't arrive with thunder or fame. Sometimes they arrive on a dusty stagecoach, carrying a small suitcase and a secret skill that changes everything. And if this story reminded you that hope can arrive in the most unexpected ways, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, leave a comment telling us what you think of Emily's incredible story, and subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable Western tales. Because out here on the frontier, the best stories are still waiting to be told.